Welcome, everyone. We are live and alive, and today is Wednesday. Well, the topic may seem slightly controversial, but I assure you it isn't, because it is speaking about the principle of gender. Yes, it is. Now, how did this topic come about? Well, I was on Twitter, and of course, there was the argument that Eve was deceived. Hmm? And so, your girl had to comment. And I said, well, did anybody ever stop to ask? Because if the tree is a tree of knowledge, of good and evil. And she said, ooh, well, I want knowledge. My son always asks me, Ma, why did they not have knowledge in the first place? And you know me, I was like, He goes, if somebody wants you to stay stupid and to not know things, he said, wouldn't that be so you can be controlled? And I said, what a great observation. Let's look at it, shall we? So, why is it the principle of correspondence and gender? It's all of them, but we're going to look at gender. Remember, gender doesn't mean man, woman, boy, girl. In the beginning, it was God who spoke to Adam and said, don't eat from this or you will die. So there's just that idea. There's no embodiment of it because he didn't do it. He didn't eat from it, so he didn't die. So nothing was embodied. It was just all in his mind. Okay? But then Eve came along and she ate it. And then they realized that they were nude. That was the embodiment of the knowledge, the knowing. So, the principle of masculine is where he was just given the idea of death and says, you'll die if you eat from it. So he didn't know. But she ate from it, didn't die, but knew themselves and then knew that they were nude. So here they are, the embodiment of knowledge now, which is feminine, the embodiment of something. And the reason why I share this with you is because we look at things in one way, but let's look at the things through the lens of correspondence. You can read the Bible all you want, but if you do not know how to apply the principles. Good morning, handsome. I hear you. If you don't know how to apply the principles, what is the purpose of learning them? So when you look at scripture, it's just a story for all intents and purposes. It's just a story. And that story, as you and I know, has been used to judge. It has been used to judge. It has been used to browbeat. It has been used never to uplift that I've seen. And it's been used to raise many a debate or argument. But where's the application of the story to change one's life? Now, that's why I look at the story. So I can apply the story to change my life. How can I apply that story? You apply the story by recognizing that you and I always have ideas. We have ideas. We have ideas. We have thoughts. We have things we say, oh, I would like to accomplish ... But that thing remains in the mind. It just remains there if you don't do anything with it. So the embodiment to do something with it would be Eve. So Eve is not just a mere quote unquote story, a mere woman in a story. She is the embodiment of the idea. Let's put it into layman's terms. As you know, many of us, we are either, tailors, seamstress, chef, painter, dancer, or any of those things. Lately, everybody's been talking. What's her name? Surya Bonali, the black figure skater. She had an idea. She said, "Oh, I can do this. I can do a backflip and land on one leg." It was just an idea, which is Adam. Just an idea. And the more she practiced it and practiced it and practiced it until she could do it, then she became Eve. She embodied that which was first invisible and brought it to life. If she did not do that, nobody would be saying her name. Nobody. She practiced and she practiced the idea. The idea is invisible. The idea was Adam. But the embodiment of the idea is Eve. So the ideas that we have in our lives to do things, your idea to open up a business, right now, it might just be sitting in the back of your mind on the back burner and not doing anything with it. It's Adam. It is invisible. Nobody knows. But you get the inspiration. And you say, "Ooh, but I want to do this. I want to accomplish this. I'm going to work on my business plan. I got all these ideas." And you stay faithful to the end result, which is a successful business. That's what you stay faithful to. And as you remain faithful to that, all of the things that you need to do to embody this idea unfold before you, and all you do is follow along and do them. So you're moving from Adam to Eve. Sounds like the principle of polarity. You're moving from where you are, from the idea, to the embodiment of the idea. So now what was once a story of condemnation, if we would use the principle of correspondence and say, well, as above, so below, as above, below we hear this story. Here we hear, you go to church, you go down the street, shoot, you go to any audio room. Oh my, the debates are fierce. And the name calling even more rampant. But I digress. And it's just an idea. But if you use that principle of correspondence to say, all right, what if these people aren't physical? What if this is psychological? What if it is psychological? How can I then apply this to my life? How can I take the story of Adam and Eve and apply it to my life psychologically instead of looking at it as just a story to say that women are the downfall of humanity? Because you see what that does. It is a judgment, yeah? It is a judgment with no sense of comprehension. But if you use the principle of correspondence and you say, okay, this is a story that I've heard for millennia. I've heard this story forever. How can I apply this story to my life? We apply the story of Adam and Eve to our psychological selves by recognizing Adam represents an idea. What was the idea? The idea was, Adam, if you eat from this tree, you're going to die. If you eat the fruit from the tree, you're going to die. It's just an idea because Adam did not eat from the tree. He didn't eat from the tree. He obeyed. He obeyed at first. Thus, nothing was embodied. He didn't die. So there was no embodiment of the idea that he learned. So how does that relate to you? You have ideas that have yet not been embodied. You have things you want to accomplish that you have not yet done. They are an idea. They are masculine. They're masculine. And when we do not see what true masculine is, masculine means idea not yet embodied. It is a projection. It's just there in your mind's eye. As I said, a seamstress, a chef, they all have ideas. A potter, he goes, "Ooh, I'd like to make a vase, or I'd like to make a bowl or something else." And the idea is just there. But the moment he sits at the wheel and begins to mold and shape the clay to match the image that is in his mind, it goes from invisible to visible. What's the visible? Visible is Eve. Anytime you get form, you get feminine, which would make a man male, feminine, because he has form. That is how you can identify him as a man. A woman has form, therefore she is feminine, not female. There's a difference between feminine and female, masculine and male. But what we have done is amalgamated them to mean the same thing, and this is where the confusion sets in. Because there's no way to apply psychologically male or female. Now, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? Psychologically, right? It's in the mind. You're doing something. You can act like a woman all day. If you're a man, you can act like a woman all day, but you're not going to become a woman. You can be a woman and act like a man all day and not become a man. But if you apply the principle of masculine to say, I have an idea and I want that idea embodied, now you can move from masculine to feminine. The embodiment of the idea, the doing of the thing, the giving it form so you can interact with it is feminine. And I know people would want to agree or disagree, but that's not my job. I'm not here to argue with you. If you observe the principles of masculine and feminine, they are universal principles, meaning you can go anywhere. You can go to Mars, you can go to Venus, you can go to Pluto, you can go to Saturn. The principles exist there as well. Some would say, but Angela, the sun, what is that? Some would say the sun is masculine, but what does it embody? It embodies life. So you see the principle of polarity sits right there in front of you. It shows you poised opposition, not opposites as in different or duality, but it shows you are looking at this thing, and at first it's just there, but then it does something, and something happens. You get the sun, you get the rain, you get the dirt. That is a recipe for growing seeds, the embodiment of something. So you could look at the earth and say, she's feminine. but she's also masculine. Because the minute you hide the seed in the dirt, you can't see it. But when it starts to sprout, there it is, always going from invisible to visible, is what masculine is and what feminine is. But because we've spent so much time arguing over who did what, we miss how to apply the story. The whole purpose is to hear the story and apply it to your psychological self. Why? Because the psychological self is masculine. Nobody sees the idea you have in your mind until you give that idea form. We're always moving from psychological to physiological, unseen to seen. That's what we're always moving. That's what we're always moving to. You get an idea and you listen to it, how we say it, you flesh it out. Some people say flush it out, but no, the term is flesh it out. Give it form. Give it form. It is far simpler to apply things psychologically so that you can change your life. Now, the other Bible story I like, I've told it to you many times, is with Jacob and Laban, his father-in-law. And he said to him, man, you don't even have any livestock. Tell you what we're going to do. I'll give you all the spotted ones, because spotted meant sickly, eh? So he didn't want those. He said, oh, you can have those. Remember what he did? He cut out spots in the sticks. Well, if you don't understand that, he cut out spots in the sticks. He put little divots in the sticks so that when the livestock were feeding, they would see spots. They didn't just see spots, they reproduced the spots. So that story, remember, again, masculine and feminine, he just had the idea. And he cut out the little circles in the pieces of sticks and put them in front of the livestock. And if you look at it, it's just livestock. At face value, it's just livestock. But psychologically, to apply it, it's telling you what you look at. What you look at, you'll become. Just looking at it? Yeah, you just look at it. And you're going to become it. You're going to embody that thing. You see, this is why it is important to lift things up using the principle of correspondence. So below as above. So you can see it here on the below. In the body, in form. Yes, you can. So take it up to its invisible self now, the psychological self. That is what we practice doing. Because if you realize that someone just has to give you an idea, a suggestion. Somebody gives a suggestion. You've got a couple of choices with that. If that suggestion moves you, you'll act it out. Because at first, the suggestion is just that, psychological. Nobody knows what somebody's whispered to you. It's invisible. But the moment you act out that, you've given it form. You're now doing it and living it. Feminine is the embodiment of the idea. That's all it is. It is the embodiment of the idea. So what idea are you sitting with today? What is it that you want to become? That you're sitting on and you're like, well, but I don't know if it's possible. Oh, my dear darling. Because you can see it in your mind's eye. That is what makes it possible. You can see it in your mind's eye, then it is possible. Back in the day, before they dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it was just an idea. Somebody brilliantly said, we need a way to destroy en masse. So, what did they do? The idea was planted. And so the scientists said, well, here's what we got. We got these things in the physical. What can we do with them? How can we use these things to bring about the embodiment of this atomic weapon? Because remember, nobody was talking like that before. But then the idea was planted. And then it was embodied. If it had remained inside on the back burner, it would just have remained there. But no, that idea was contemplated and tested and contemplated and tested until it took form. So you see, good, bad, or indifferent. Good, bad, or indifferent. We all have ideas. And when we take the time to contemplate the idea and work it out in our mind's eye, quite like Nikola Tesla used to do, allegedly. He would build things in his mind's eye, and if they didn't work, he'd test it out. He knew where the error was. He'd test it out, and it would work. And then finally, he would build it. That's the point. That's what the story of Adam and Eve is saying to us. It is saying we start out with ideas, but then we have to embody the idea. You embody it, which is feminine. I can't say to you if that story is true or not. I cannot tell you if it happened. I have no, we want to say evidence. I can't argue it. I can't say that it is real or it is not real. But what I can say is, because we do this every day, because we have ideas, and because we embody them and do them, I can say to you, I don't have to believe that. I just observe it. I don't have to go back into history to try to find it for you to prove it. All I can tell you is, and this is why the principles don't leave room for argument. The principles are based, they're universal principles. If I go outside and I plant what I call corn, that's what's going to grow. There's no arguing with that. There's no disputing it. If I run on the ice, crack my head open when I fall, I'll tell you that. Right? They're right there to be observed and to be used. I can use it again and again and again. That is why the psychological is important. The part you can't see, which is masculine. You cannot see it on the outside. You can't. It's an idea. You can sketch your idea, and then it's now taken on the element of feminine. So you can show that idea and say, hey, look, here's the plans. Here's what I want us to build. And you show it, you give the measurements, and you build it. You can always replicate it over and over. The principles are there, and you can always use them because the principles are not based on an opinion. So if you want to change your life, you can use anything around you to do so. If you know how to interpret the story and take it from just being a story and bring it up to your mind's eye and say, wait, how can I use this story to change my life? How can I apply this story to change my life? I have an idea, and I want to bring that idea to fruition. Oh, fruition. Give it form. You can do that every day with the principles. There's no arguing with principles. There's the principle of rhythm, ebb and flow. What does that tell you? So that when you look at your life, you can say, well, where does rhythm come from? Rhythm is everywhere. We call them habits. You do the same thing the same way every time. It's a pattern. Rhythm. The idea, remember, is invisible. It is masculine, not yet embodied. But if you recognize that if you practice the same thing the same way every time, you will take that idea from invisible and you will make it visible. You will go from not knowing to knowing every single time through using the principle of rhythm, practicing. When we hear rhythm, we think music. Yes, that's where it applies as well. You got to have the count, the 2-4, the 6-8. You got to have the count, the pattern, because it is the pattern that helps to give it form. Ask any seamstress. A recipe is a pattern as well. See, there are patterns everywhere. So being able to observe something as it is instead of judging it helps us in a very real way to move things from the invisible to the visible. What do I mean by judging it? Oh my God, Eve got deceived. That's why you can't trust women. They get deceived all the time. That is a judgment. And I've heard people say, women don't use logic. We use emotion. Hello, that's a judgment. Each human has been given the ability to reason and to think and to speak. To reason is to use your logic. Women use logic just like men do. Because logic can't see it. It's invisible until it becomes visible as action. So it is masculine because it is invisible until you do it, act it out. And I know that sometimes these things can be a little hard to hear, but it's just something for contemplation. To think about it, to mull it over, to look around you. Where can you spot rhythm? If you listen to a standard ignition when you're driving, you'll hear rhythm. Or you'll hear because it is listening to the pattern that will cause you to press the clutch and shift gears. You see, so rhythm is everywhere. It is all around us. It is how we live on a daily basis. Patterns are all around us. But to embody the pattern, to change your life, you imitate the pattern. You know how the seamstress will lay the cloth on the pattern and pin it down and cut it out? That is an imitation of the pattern. So how do we imitate the pattern? You observe it. So step 1, you want to change your life from the present pattern that you have. You don't like this pattern. You say, I'm not a fan of this pattern. I don't like how I just have ideas, but I just never follow through with them. I don't like procrastinating. So if that's your pattern, you want your new pattern to be what? You look at the old. You don't do. So in your new pattern, you want to do. You want to be able to do. So then you choose. What is it that I didn't finish over here? I would like to finish it. That is step one. Making that decision to say, I don't like how I don't finish. Well, you know what? I want to finish. I want to start with this thing here, and I want to finish it. There is a mental attitude that you have. You can't, your neighbors can't see it. Nobody around you sees it. But there's a mental attitude that you have. It's invisible. It's masculine. And you say, you know what? I want to change that. What do you want to change it to? You have to decide what to change it to. You can't just leave it hanging because there's no emptiness, there's no void. Every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause. As within, so without, as above, so below. There's that open and close. It's not just open. So you must decide what you want to become. You look at where you are and what you're doing and what you don't want to be. And from there, you draw and you say, wait, well, then I want to become this. So there is a pattern of behavior. There's a pattern of mood that confirms for you what you want to become. And that pattern now, because it's going to start with the mental attitude, how would you think? How would you behave? What pattern of behavior, what pattern of thought would you have if you became who you said you wanted to become? And when you see that pattern of behavior, that pattern, that mentality, you start to practice it. And you start to practice it. And because things ebb and flow, you're going to go back to what you used to do naturally because that pathway is stronger because you've been doing it for so long. So in order to give this thing flesh, this new you, this Eve, in order to give it that, to embody it, you must rehearse it to give it form. What form, you ask? Now, inside the brain, we have all these neurons and synapses and blah, blah, blah. But they do something. The more you practice this particular new way of thinking, this new way of behaving, you are forming the pathway from invisible to visible. You're moving from Adam to Eve. Through your practice, through your rehearsal. That is what you're doing. Now, you and I don't see that. We don't see how it is in the brain because our brains are enclosed, so we don't see it. And if you put the little magnets and probes on the little cap and hook it up to the computer, all we see are blips on the screen. You know, blip, 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 blip. We just see the blips on the screen, which mean nothing necessarily. But when you start to do, now the blips on the screen are showing you, oh, you set down a new pathway, so you're doing this thing. You don't have to have the little cap on and be hooked up to the computer to see that you are changing. You're not pretending to change and looking for the evidence of your change. You are the one laying down the neurological pathway. And the way that you will know is through the principle of correspondence, as within the brain and the neurological pathway, so without, by way of your actions, your thoughts, and your words, they will all line up. Because you cannot act different from the neurological pathway that you have set down. You can't act differently from it. It's the pattern that you set down. So you can only embody it now. So this is how we take and we move from Adam, which is the idea, to Eve, the embodiment of the idea. Through the constant rehearsal of it, to lay down the pathway. If you imagine, if you will, the neurological pathway, you're being a sculptor. You're for all intents and purposes, you're being Michelangelo. There's a tiny little Michelangelo with a mallet and a chisel inside your brain. And every time you do the same thing the same way, every time he taps the chisel with the mallet to lay down a groove. Tap, 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 tap. Every time you do it, that's what little teeny tiny invisible Michelangelo is doing. Laying out a pathway so that when he's done chiseling out the pathway, he packs up his tools and he goes, "You're good. You don't need me anymore. You can do it now." With your eyes closed, because he laid down the pathway for you. If that will help you to comprehend that what you practice, what you contemplate, is what and only what you will do. So if you are observing your life, you're looking at it. It is an embodiment right now of what you presently are. You're Eve. The embodiment. But you want to become Adam for now. You want to get an idea of who and what you want to be. And when you grasp that idea, it comes with a pattern. This is why Neville Goddard says you don't have to lift a finger to make it so. He's not saying to you that you don't have to do any work. That's not what he's saying. He's saying to you, once you choose the pattern, that is how you will behave. So you don't have to choose your actions, choose the pattern, and the actions follow. Choose the pattern, and the actions will follow. Ray Ray says he's always procrastinating. And only because the thing has not yet moved you, dearest. We act when we are moved to do so. You know exactly what I mean. When you just jump up and go, I gotta go do this. I don't want to, but I gotta go do it. And you get up and you go do it because you were moved to do so. So you see, day in and day out, we flow between the states of Adam and Eve. Day in and day out, we flow between these two things. And you know, it's funny, they look like they're two, but they're not. They're not. One is invisible and the other is visible. But the thing that is invisible is not going to be different from the thing that is visible. That's why they're the same. They're not different. The mango seed can only become the mango fruit, but they look different, don't they? The seed and the fruit and the tree, they look like they're different. No, they're the same thing, just in different stages. That is polarity, just in different stages, because you're moving from one state to another. But the state that you move, the pattern that you move, can only be the thing that is expressed. So there's only one thing that's going to be expressed. That's why there's no duality. Only one thing is expressed. The mango. Whether it is in the seed state, sapling state, sprout state, blossom state, it doesn't matter. It's still the mango. Only one thing. So you see, day in and day out, we are moving from the state of Adam with our ideas that are invisible, masculine, and we move towards Eve, feminine. Now, if you begin to recognize that Adam and Eve are one and the same psychologically is what we're talking about here. If you can recognize that Adam and Eve are the same, it'll help you in your daily life, because each and every one of us is constantly moving from invisible to visible. And if all of us move from invisible to visible, that makes us the same. One is not better, one is not worse, one is not superior, one is not inferior. They are the same because they move in exactly the same fashion. They move from the invisible state to the embodied state. And so, step one, acknowledge what this thing is that you're doing, that you don't want to do anymore. This person that you are, that you don't want to be anymore. Acknowledge that. And then choose, what do you want to be instead? This is why I always say it's not that people want to end their lives. People want what they're going through to end. That's what they want. They want what they're going through to end. So how do you make it end without ending you? You change the idea. You change the mental aspect. Because the mental aspect, if you change that, it is where you must start. It is the root, the seed, all the things that are invisible. And once you keep rehearsing the new way that you want to be, remember, you're not pretending. Remember, you're not saying, God, how long is this going to take? We look at, I think you say her name, Surya Bonali, the French skater. You think she woke up one morning and she could just do a backflip on skates while moving at God knows how much speed on the ice? You think she got up and she said, I can do it? No. I am sure she practiced on dry land first with somebody there to hold her as she flipped over and over and over and over. She fell God knows how many times. But what was she doing? The thing she had in her mind, her little teeny tiny Michelangelo, came along, and every time she flipped, every time she did this, he laid down that pattern for her to follow through her practice. And then one day, she landed it. Nobody saw the invisible thing until she got out on that ice and the invisible became visible. She only could do what she rehearsed. So if your rehearsal time is spent in complaining about who is better than you, if your rehearsal time is spent with, I don't have enough, what do you think your performance will be? So what do we do to change that in our lives? Let's put a cap on it, because people say, "Well, that's so negative." Look around you. These are the things that people are struggling with, and they want to know how to change it. So if you're dealing with anxiety, you're dealing with depression, whatever it is you're dealing with, it is just a pattern. How do you know? It's just a pattern. When you go to the doctor, he says this ailment has this presentation. So every time they see that presentation, they know to call it that thing. Everything has a pattern. So they say anxiety looks like this, depression looks like this. They say arthritis looks like this, a degenerative disc looks like this. A pattern. So that means health has a pattern. What does health look like? Depends on what your ailment is. But to generalize health would mean there's ease of movement. There is, you know, ease of movement is the best one I can come up with on this short notice, because that's usually what we're in. Some people are in pain, they can't move all that great. So, health, the pattern of health looks like you move well. You're not in pain. You can do the activities you want to do. You can go out on the court and play some tennis if you want. You can play golf. Your shoulders don't hurt. So you see, health has a pattern, just like illness has a pattern. That's how you can differentiate between the two, by the pattern. So the more you observe the pattern that you want to become, you start to act like the pattern. Oh, Angela, it can't be that easy. You know what the quote unquote hard part is? To believe it. But the principles don't ask you to believe. The principles ask you to observe and imitate, because the outcome is going to be the same. Oh, just watch it. Cause and effect. Plant corn, get corn. So it's telling you, plant the mental attitude that you want to embody. And naturally, you will start to behave like it. But that's why you behave the way you are behaving now, because you have practiced that pattern. You just didn't know you were practicing that pattern. So you see, my beautiful friends, Adam and Eve are not mere men and women. I can't tell you if they're men or women or not. But what I can tell you is they are psychological things that I can apply to my life to make it better. I don't care to argue with whether they existed or not. I don't care. What I care about is, can I apply it to myself to change my life? And I can. So I'm going to use every tool that I can see around me. And it's those 7 principles: mentalism, the all is mind, the universe is a mental creation, correspondence, as within, so without, as above, so below, vibration, everything moves, nothing stands still, polarity, moving from where you are to where you're going, rhythm, an ebb and a flow, a pattern. This pattern causes, and every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. Gender, the idea, masculine, and the embodiment of the idea, feminine. Period. If you live like that, you won't have time to argue about which God is which God is real and which one isn't. But what you will know is, I can apply this and change my life. And somewhere along the line, you will learn many things about yourself. And allegedly, when you know yourself, you'll know God. But that's why I tell you, we get caught up in the arguing. Yet, we don't get caught up in the application to change our lives. So let's wrap it up, Angela. Let's put it on a nice, neat bow. Today, whatever that thing is you're going through, you can name it. Don't run from it. Don't judge it. Don't say, but my daddy. No, just say, oh, that's my pattern. That's what I'm doing. I quite frankly don't want to do that pattern anymore. Let me select a new pattern and take some time to select the new pattern. Once you have the new pattern, you say, that new pattern has accompanying behaviors. That new pattern has an accompanying feeling. That new pattern has accompanying thoughts and actions. That's what I want. I want that pattern. And then you allow the feeling. Because it feels good to know that you don't have to remain the same, doesn't it? It feels good to know that I can change my life. Well, hot diggity dog, I don't have to suffer anymore. Ooh, if that is not enough to make you get up and do a dance, I don't know what will. So you see that? Wanting to get up and do the dance to realize that I can change. And I literally change and rewire my brain every time I entertain this feeling. This feeling right here will represent my change. And so, step 3, you make yourself feel that change because it is the feeling that represents the change. And that feeling will activate your brain, Michelangelo, with his little tiny chisel and mallet, and he will carve out the pathway neurologically for you to follow so that when I get that feeling, every time you get that feeling, you know that you're living the life you want to live. Why? Because the pathway, you set it down. So stay faithful to that feeling. That feeling is not pretending. That feeling is you laying down the pathway in your brain over and over and over again so that you can do what? Get up and go and do it on the ice. So people can say, oh my God, you make that look so easy. But they don't know that you had to practice that new mentality. Get that feeling to put you in the mood for that mentality so that you know that, you see this mentality that I practice? I'm going to have to live it out. So you keep practicing until what? Neville says, until it takes on the tones of reality. Which means you get up on the ice and make that shit look like you were born doing it. You just popped out doing it that way. You can change. You just perhaps did not comprehend how the change occurred. But now that you see how it happens, now you know it's not mumbo jumbo, it's not woo woo, it's not no magic. You don't have to dance naked in the moonlight. You just have to select the mood that represents the change that you want to become. Select your Eve. Eve. If you watch Wally, you know. Just select who you want to become. Why? It is the effect, and every effect has its cause. Never again will you suffer. Because you know now, suffering, the embodiment of suffering, is what? The thoughts. The invisible. The invisible always becomes visible. Anywho, who's here with us today? Olza, darling. Yoda Green. You're kicking it with us here in this Twitter sphere. Who's here on Fanbase? Miss McQueen. I know my sweet KZ was here, but I don't see her anymore. I know she's busy this morning. Michael is in the house. Menace! Ow! Well, look at you, stranger. It is brilliant to see you, darling. Ray Ray is in the house. Jessamine is in the house. I see you all. Well, Jessie May, but you see, Jessie May, that's exactly why I sang that song. When I get that feeling, what feeling did he get? Well, he told you what feeling he got by what? The next line, he tells you the type of feeling he got. Cause and effect. If he didn't get that feeling, he would not need that kind of healing. Hello? But you know what? As my grandparents used to say, you pick sense from nonsense. Okay. Ow. Who's here with us in these YouTube streets, Facebook streets? Melly Mel. Hey, girl. K Frame is in the house. Woot woot. Yeah. God, I love you guys. You get me fired up so early in the morning. I love it. Because as you go through this day today, take some time to recognize that you have such a beautiful opportunity before you to change your life. What kind of life do you want? Well, that depends. How do you want to feel in this new life when you get out of bed in the morning? Anywho, I am so pleased that you all showed up today to spend some time with me and Lil Bit and Lady. She laid an egg yesterday, so now I have a dozen eggs. I, she knows I'm counting, you know. And she's like, I'm going to just throw you, that's all. Let's see if she lays an egg today. But I know she's sitting in that corner, though. That much I know. But she's so soft and cute. Her little feathers. Well, she doesn't have feathers. She's got like hair. Because she's a silky. So they don't have feathers. Anywho, I'll see you again tomorrow. Right here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, fan base. I'm excited for you. Because now you know. Now you know that there's a little Michelangelo tapping away for you. I swear all I saw in my head when that came out of my mouth was a little teeny tiny Michelangelo with a mallet and a chisel. Talking about, oh, we're gonna lay down a pathway today. Let's work it out. And I was like, you go, Michelangelo. And so it helped me. I don't know. Well, let's hope it helps you. Well, let's know that it helps you. Ow. So that you gotta listen, Michelangelo will stop tapping you when you stop moving. You gotta let him lay down the pathway. You gotta let him lay it down so that you can follow it. Anywho, I'll see you in the morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, fanbase. Ow. Indeed. And remember to check it out, positivelyangela.com. Oh, gosh, you guys are awesome. I love you dearly. And I shall see you on tomorrow. Countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 love. See you in the morning. David. David. It's good to see you. It is. Send me a note, David. Catch me up on what's going on. And Chef Kiam, I can't say that I know you, or even if I'm saying your name right. Welcome to the space, nonetheless. But that was us for the day, my beautiful friends. We have just wrapped up, and so we are going to get going because these chickens are not going to feed themselves. A little bit chased me yesterday. I just put down his new food. I picked up the old, and I've got this in my hand, right? And I saw him, and I was like, this son of a motherless goat. And I knew what he was going to do. I ran out of that room. And I was like, "No, but how could you?" Oh, jeez. But that's okay. He has his moments. You see? Oh, he ready. Talking about, "You're gonna come in here and I'm gonna get you." I told you, he's smart. He knows. Yeah, Imma bring your food, sir. Imma bring your food. Relax. I just know. I'm gonna have to be quicker than him and scoop him up when he does that. We can't move as fast as they can. They're raptors. They see 300 degrees, right? We only see in front of us, and we gotta turn our heads to see the rest. Nah, he just moves his eyes, and he knows, so he can move real fast, like lightning. Anywho, let's get y'all out the door and off to work, y'alls. Enjoy this beautiful day, and you know that I love you. I am well, Chef Cam. I am well. Send me a DM, Chef Cam. Send me a DM, okay? Um, yeah. Because if I don't feed him, he gonna be hollering and talking about, "Oh, you're neglecting me, mother." And I'm like, no, I'm not, sir. You always get your food the same time every day. All right, y'all. Toodaloo. Toodaloo.